What's up, everybody? It's me, Stevie, Supersmallchibiwolf, Supersmallchibiwolf, and today I'm going to be talking about the 9th gen gaming disaster. So let's get into this. First thing I want to talk about is how the companies used to be, how Sony and Nintendo used to shine, man, and compare them to now. So let's get into this. I feel like when it comes down to it, to make long story short, it's easy to see these companies, when it comes down to because there's two things, handheld and home console. Let's speed run handheld because that's a shorter history. You had, the Game Boy lines of Nintendo, always unique, always evolving and being creative and amazing. Then later on, they had, the DS, 3DS, etc. Same thing, always evolving, always being unique and cool. They gave you a purpose alongside wonderful games that uses each specific console in its own unique way. And I always love that. When it comes down to Sony, dude, they had the PSP, which, dude, if you had a PSP, you good, man. You had everything on it, especially when you broke it. You could have your music catalog on it. You could have wonderful games. Later on, people did put mods and other stuff. Well, not mods, it's emulation and other stuff. Amazing stuff was happening. You could do that with the DS line as well. But yeah, man, these handhelds, alongside the consoles, because the handhelds and consoles, they both had the unique games and experiences that you can only play on either a handheld or a console, and I feel like they, current gen, they really don't have handheld stuff, Nintendo's a hybrid. So that's his own league, you know what I mean? That's his own league, man. There's home console, handheld, and then there's the hybrid. That's his own thing overall. But Sony-wise, they have one that just basically plays PS5 games on the go. It doesn't have unique games at all. And that's a shame, man. I thought it was going to be something like that, like a Vita 2 or whatever, So, yeah. Now, with handheld out of the way, let's talk about the consoles, I feel like console-wise, they always succeeded up until now. Think about it, right? Even at their worst, they were still better than modern times. You know what I mean? Think about that, man. You had a PS1 dominated, PS2 dominated, PS3 faltered, had its weirdness, but eventually dominated, coming second to the Wii, sale-wise. And then the PS4 continued the domination, and then PS5, And then, Nintendo-wise, this start from the N64, yeah, they kind of faltered, but even at their worst, like with the N64 sale-wise, and I'm looking at this, by the way, when I say worst, I'm looking at it by sale number, company, business-wise, because I love these consoles, you know what I mean? So, unless it's Wii U. So, yeah, I just want to explain that. So, N64 failed to the PS1. And then you had the GameCube, which failed to the PS2. So comparing them is what I'm saying. So after the GameCube, they were like, damn it, man. So they came out with the Wii, which dominated the PS3. You know what I mean? It's sale numbers. And then the PS4 came back, because they had the Wii. They were dominating and said, you know what? We need a Wii U. At that point, they just gave up, I think, name-wise, and they just died. You know what I mean? They just died. I feel like Nintendo kind of died, during the Wii U. It was just like, I remember hearing just like one after another awful thing. But surprisingly, they had amazing games on that console. Man, I remember many amazing games being announced. Man, you had like Tekken, you had like Tekken Tag Tournament 2, and then you had like unique Nintendo suits. I believe Jin had like a Star Fox, Fox McCloud suit, something like that. I kind of remember like very vivid, and I'm like, yo, man, that was amazing, man. Even that, wow. And then after the Wii U, you had the Switch, and then here we are now. You know what I mean? With the Switch 2. Not being, and the Switch, man, I love the Switch, man. I still play it, but then the Switch 2. Now, as you can see, my reason for bringing this up is because, Nintendo and Sony always had an issue. right? Even when one was kind of struggling, the other one was dominating, and this and that. You know what I mean? You know, so my point of bringing this up is, I feel like when as time went by, they kind of forgot what it's like to be a gaming company. Because a game company should create unique, amazing games, and it feels like they're kind of relying more on the remakes, remasters, or just pushing just the same similar stuff or paying for other stuff. I feel like, what was it? Yeah, I think like a few years ago, this whole generation, Sony was trying to push like what was it, service games. Yes. So I feel like there's been like at least 3 or 4 different service games that Sony tried to push throughout the PS5's life, and each one kept on failing and failing, and it's just memed on upon memed, and it's like, damn, Sony, chill out, create something unique. And then, yeah, it's unfortunate. And then here we are with the Switch. Now, Switch 2 is only a year old, or heading towards a year. And I've seen a lot of remakes and remasters of Switch games on it. And don't get me wrong, the Switch 1 had its fair share of Wii U remakes and remasters and other game consoles, even the Wii games that's been. But they had a lot of unique, brand new games. The PS4 had a lot of unique, brand new games. Yes, they also had remakes and remasters, but they had a lot of unique, brand new games. You know what I mean? I feel like in current generation, you can't say that for the PS5 or now first year Switch 2. Okay? Now, hopefully, I feel like the Switch 2, from what I've seen, to be fair, for the Switch 2, it's only been a year. And from what I've seen, they do have, well, I went to the game store today, okay? And they have like this booklet of upcoming games and all that stuff, right? And I haven't watched the Sony State of Play Nintendo Direct in a long time, okay? And so when I look through that booklet to see what games are coming out and stuff, talking to people who walk in a game store, okay? I think there's 4 games I'm excited for this year. I think. Maybe 5, just being generous. But yeah, and I'm like, okay, 2 of them are on a console I don't even have, Switch 2, because I'm waiting for some OLED, because let's be honest, man, it's going to be a unique, I feel it, man, I feel it. Watch, if I buy a Switch 2 today, because the only game I want is that Kirby game and the Legend of Zelda game, which I forgot the name of. But there's a Legend of Zelda game that released, I think, in December, and yeah, that's the one after Echoes of Wisdom, by the way. So it's not that one. And that's it. You know what I mean? Like Mario Kart doesn't do nothing for me. Donkey Kong, I plan to avoid, all that stuff, So I'm kind of like waiting for Splatoon. I think when it's Splatoon, whatever it's called, because I forget, I'm kind of recovering from sickness, so my memory's not the best now. So from when that Splatoon game comes out, Splatoon, that new one, I'm going to get it, man. I'm like, okay, I think it's going to be wonderful now. It's time. But from what it is now, I kind of like, I'm surprised because, I've always been surprised in a way how these companies are. Every time they're on the top, their creativity's up and all of that. You know what I mean? They're doing so much. And then next thing you know, when they're already there, they falter. You know what I mean? And I've been hearing this a lot for the Switch 2 related stuff. There's been a lot of fans that are not happy. And I'm like, damn, that's unfortunate, because I thought Nintendo was going to, try to go all out this generation now that they have the fans back from the disaster, which was the Wii U. You know what I mean? So I'm just over here like, wow. And then Sony wise, it's like, come on, man. Like, you can't like revive some franchises, work with companies. How many times, Sony doesn't even, why do they even have a console at this point? I feel like, because a lot of their stuff is on PC. So it's either on PC or going to Nintendo. You know what I mean? I believe Horizon Zero Dawn, they kind of put that on Nintendo Switch or something, a Switch 2 on a collaboration or something like that. And it's like, what's even going on with these companies? So yeah. I just wanted to talk about that and, release a video, say Happy New Year, talk about these game companies because I feel like, you know what? Someone has to, man. I'm always hearing about people just talking about the same old stuff. And I'm like, yo, nah, man. Someone needs to call out these companies because for Sony, it's been 6 years, man. 6 years. The third party companies, think third party companies, man. SNK, Square Enix, all these companies, man. Bandai Namco, you already know Tekken 8, man. And just, wow, these third party companies really blessed the PS5 because Sony definitely is not doing that. Dude, let's wish the best for the Switch too because from what I could see now, man, man, I hope. Once I see a brand new 3D Super Mario game, in a special edition, I'll buy a Switch 2. But until then, I'm avoiding it. Man, nah, man. So yeah, with all that being that, let me know what you all think. So yeah, hopefully my voice isn't scratching the microphones of other people because, damn, man, it feels weird. A little sick. But recovering compared to yesterday, definitely. It's better. So with all that being that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, bye.